the Denny head. Everybody likes the Denis Cimaf. And so February 2018, happened to be February 23rd, which was my 29th birthday, Sarah and I got a 180D from Denis Cimaf. Came all nicely wrapped in plastic on a cute little pallet. It also came with a new machine we had purchased, which is a 2018 120 ASV. The Denny head has blown me away with how productive it is, but not really how much more productive it is in comparison to other manufacturers, but how much more Cimaf seems to care about the end user as opposed to other manufacturers. How many heads a year is Denis Cimaf selling?
Have you said that again?
How many heads a year do you guys sell?
Oh boy! So, try make calculation. They made 10 per week on the all sale before they made it.
Yeah.
So that's wild.
So when we purchased our Denis Cimaf, it was mainly because I looked around, I looked at what everybody else was running. I saw a few guys with these like gray heads. A couple guys had them painted black because they're cool like that, but I like the gray better. And so I saw a few guys with these heads, and then my cat rep at the time was like, yo, when I bought my first Caterpillar, which was a 299D, it was a 2014. Yeah, 2014 299D. It wasn't XHP, it was just 299D. And with a FAE 315 head, which was branded Cat. It was logoed Cat, but it was built by FAE, which is a fabulous machine. Like, I recommend it to basically anybody. But I purchased that thing for 82 grand, had 1,500 hours, the whole entire unit. I started my mulching career with that, and it was like an $8,000 down situation. So like, it was like 10% down on the thing, and it was like a $1,500 a day machine. And that, I mean, that's basically how I got into it. I actually got into it because I messed up on a land clearing job and I needed a way to like transport materials off. And so I started with like mulching materials up on the outskirts of that project, and the customer was like blown away with it and he loved it. And so I got into mulching, forestry mulching that way. And it was a good avenue. Like, it was a really great solopreneur business, and I would say it still is very much so a solopreneur business. Every now and then you see a few guys running like inside of a company unit, like, you know, maybe you're running like a crew of 2 or 3 or up to 7, but you never see like 50 guys in a mulching business. It's not like landscape or lawn care or something like that where you'd have a big business. Not that you would need that, because the profits and the revenues are good enough just how they are, but the problems and the potential risks and concerns are astronomical. So it's very much an owner-operator business. And so what the owner-operators told me was, you need the Denis Cimaf. My cat dealer also said, like, yo, the Denis Cimaf is what's up. I don't love working with my local cat dealer, so we ended up going with the ASV, which was actually a pretty good decision. Like, at the end of everything, it was a really good decision. We definitely picked the right dealer, for sure. So we got the 180D. What was unique about it was it wasn't like plug and play as like the other mulchers that I had were, because I've had a forestry deck, I had the FAE, buddy of mine had a Fecon, actually a couple buddies of mine had Fecons. Fecon's really popular, and that's what I kind of like started out with. Like, my knowledge in the industry was like, yeah, you get a Fecon, because they're DCR, so they're depth control. The FAE didn't really give me depth control, and down here in Florida, Southwest Florida, we deal with like a lot of palmetto. It's like a stringy, wet plant, and it just bogs down things. And so that depth control only allows you to take so much bite, and it lets you keep your revolutions up, basically. So we get this 180D, it shows up, it runs pretty cool. I make a couple adjustments on the hoses. I add some fire hose to it. I actually added like a basically like a drain pipe you get from like Home Depot, like a 4-inch like flexible drain pipe, and I put that over it only because Marco told me that was going to be better than the fire hose that I originally had on it. And I'm like, and he was 100% right. So the unique thing about Denis Cimaf was they flew down these guys from Quebec that spoke basically French and a little bit of English, but basically French, and they came out and they had their like James Bond briefcase, and they like came out and had like all their little gauges and stuff like that, and they're like rental car, like a rental car. They show up to our machine like, oh yeah, the ASV is good, it's a good carrier, we like the carrier, and they're like going through the whole thing. They tune this thing in, they got these crazy like space age gauges, and they're just like tuning up our situation. So that's a gauge.
Yeah, because I have to check pressure, return line, and drain case line.
To max to max our machine flow perfectly, and then time the shift point. It was pretty incredible, and it became very, very productive post I'm doing this. They also taught me how to sharpen the blades on the thing. They spent a good 2 or 3 hours at our shop just teaching me like how to utilize their machine, how to maintain it, how to care for it. It came with its own like case with like its rebuild kit, like new bearings and stuff like that, ready to go. Came with its own like grinder. Like, it was amazing. Like, it was pretty like, I was blown away with the customer service from Denis Cimaf.
If you ever have to change the seal in the back, all you have to do is you remove these two screws. Tight it, but not too much. Tight it, and use a hammer with a puller and press on with a punch.
Like, I never bought a machine, and then like a month later, after I've unwrapped it from the pallet and whatnot, like representatives from the company show up and they're like, so how's everything working? Let's make things better. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And it was also a relatively inexpensive purchase. Like, it was like a $3,700 or $37,000 purchase in comparison to like the skid steer, which was like 95 grand. We didn't have that type of level of service like with skid steer. Like, no one from ASV showed up. I'm like, so how are things running? But these guys that like, you know, they're under $40,000 project, were like flying down to Florida to like help us dial in our machine, which is just like absolutely amazing. They taught me how to run it, how to be more productive. They watched me run it like at our shop, and like, you know, my first couple runs on some pepper trees, and they're like, is this the type of material and vegetation that you typically see? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, the pepper trees in our area are like definitely definitely the problem, right? They're the problem for the homeowner, the landowner, the developer, and they're certainly the money maker for us. And so these guys helped me tune that head to basically hit pepper very, very well, and I was just amazed with it. Moving forward with it, I had to do nothing to this thing but grease it and change the teeth. Changing the teeth was relatively easy. They, I mean, everything, they taught me how to do absolutely everything. Like, Marco was just amazing with what he did, and because of the customer service that we got with the Denis Cimaf, or with that entire purchase, I don't care if they have a superior designed product or not, I'm still gonna buy another one, because that was amazing. And I was like, that never happens. And so I don't think that the head itself is any more productive than, say, a Fecon, another DCR head, or a comparable, cheaper Gyrotrack or FAE head, or, you know, Lofness doesn't have the best reputation in the world, but like other brands. It's certainly more productive. It gives a good cut finish, like a good quality finish, but I wouldn't say it's that much drastically more productive where you gotta buy this one versus buying something else. And I would certainly buy something used at the right price that wasn't a Cimaf. But what I was amazed with was the customer service and the personal attention that we got from Denis Cimaf was like second to none. Like, I've never bought a machine and had a follow-up. Never bought a machine and had a follow-up from a sales guy, except our JCB sales guy, who's like the shit, and like, he'll follow up on stuff. But like, I never had that type of customer service before. And so I was blown away by that. I'm also blown away by the simplicity of the machine and how like just good it works. Like, it spools up. It's lightweight. It's a great machine. Like, it's awesome. It takes our carrier unit and makes it like, it just makes it a beast. And so I don't think that getting a Cimaf would be the first move in moving into forestry mulching. And I coach with guys on Fridays. You guys can check it out in the link below. But I do coaching. I also offer courses. I don't have a course out at the moment on forestry mulching, but I've got a Landworks course in the works, and that will certainly cover forestry mulching, so that all your questions and whatnot will be addressed, because it's very much a solopreneur business, and it's a very, very different type of business. But with the guys that I've coached with in the space of forestry mulching and land clearing in general, site works, so you can totally start, and you should start in forestry by doing this one thing. You should rent your machine and purchase a forestry deck. If you can rent, I mean, for your first jobs, rent the whole damn thing. But as you get going with your jobs and you're soliciting using Craigslist, using Facebook ads, Instagram, local blogging, you should purchase a forestry deck and then rent in your skid steer. Start in forestry that way. Once you get to that point, then you get to the spot where you're going to buy a carrier unit and you're going to purchase a mulching head. And those things should be done together. And typically I believe in buying the head, the Cimaf, cash. And we did that. We bought the Cimaf cash and we financed the machine. And the reason that we financed the machine was because these things literally light on fire. They blow apart. They have warranties on them and then they're crap. But the Cimaf, very well, and any mulching head for that matter, but definitely the Cimaf, very well is going to outlast the carrier unit, and you may end up with a secondary carrier unit. What was unique about the 180D and why we went with the 180D was that you could run the 180 on a smaller machine like the ASV 75. That's basically just a 74 horsepower machine. I don't care if it's a Bobcat, Kubota, whatever. If it's high flow 74 horse, it's going to run it relatively okay. It's a little heavy for it. Really should be run on a 299 or ASV 120 or a large frame CTL, Kubota 95, etc., etc. By the way, Kubota 95 is junk. Come at me in the comments though. How's that DEF fluid working for you, boys? Not a big deal. They just got to fix that little injector, but everyone knows the Kubota 95, not the most reliable in the game. But anyway, you start out with a forestry deck. It's the easiest, simplest, most quickest way to get production. And you're going to be able to do most of what every forestry guy does. And then at some point you're going to buy a mulching head. And if you do buy a mulching head and you're buying a mulching head cash, or if you're financing it, whatever, but you're going to buy a brand new mulching head, the only option I'd be looking at would be Denis Cimaf, from my personal experience. I would buy a Fecon at the right price. I certainly would buy another FAE. It was very reliable, but at the time they didn't have the DCR head, or the DCR option on it, so I didn't have depth control. It would bog down a lot. It was a very good head, and in certain areas of the country, certain areas of the world, it would be a fabulous head. And I would love to buy one used for like 12, 15 grand. I'd totally scoop one up. But if I'm going to spend close to $40,000 on a head, the Denis Cimaf is the only way that I'm going to roll. It was just like the experience was amazing. We had zero issues with it. It stayed cool. Like it hardly bogged down. Like it was fabulous. The 180 was unique. It was a good size for the 120, but it was a good size for the 120, and it also had the ability to be scoped up. So if we wanted to, we could dial up to like the SK 170 from SuperTrack, and the 180 would actually fit on that machine. They recommend the 225, but we could run the 180 on the SK 170. So we could start out with like a large frame CTL 299, a 120, Kubota 95, whatever, and then we could move on up into like running an SK 170, and then from there on out maybe you're into full dedicated machine. And so the 180 was a baller purchase for us. It wasn't awesome on the 74 horsepower unit, mainly because I don't think we had the shift points and whatnot right, and I would have really preferred to have a 150. And so if I could go back in time, I probably still would have gotten the 120. Probably actually would have switched it, because I think the ASV product line sucks right now. But I would have probably put the 150 head on like a Takahauchi or a Bobcat. Caterpillar is obviously good if you've got a good relationship with their dealer. Like if you've got a good relationship with your local dealer and Cat, then you're good. But I would totally drop a 150 on a 74 horsepower machine. I think that that's probably the most productive situation you could get for a drum mulcher if you're going to go drum mulcher. Although I promote going deck on a 74 horsepower machine way before doing anything else. You can go deck on a 100 horsepower machine or 92, like the 299 or anything like that, but I don't think you need to. I think that a 74 horsepower machine is more than comparable to run a forestry deck. I think a forestry deck gets you 70% of the production that you would get out of a typical drum mulcher like a Denis Cimaf. Might get some hate for that. You can hate in the comments because it's freaking true. And any of you guys that are running a deck or take my advice on a deck is a $1,200 a day machine, like with a regular Bobcat. Like you need a Lexan door. Great news, Sarah. Unfortunately, when she came over with the news, the door fell off the hinges. So it's not that I I like the shots on ASV. It's just that I want them to listen. I just want them to listen. Like, we're so close to having the best machine on the. But other than that, you can run standard flow, as long as you got like 25 gallon a minute. Like, you need 25 gallon a minute. The standard Bobcat's got you there. But like, if you run that situation, you're billing $1,200 a day. If you run the Denis Cimaf with a 180, you can bill $1,800 a day. A lot of guys will bill $1,500 a day. If you're in a great area with no competition, you might be able to bill $2,200, $2,400 a day. You're not going to see a whole lot beyond that, unless you're doing things by the bid, which is great. I like doing things by the bid. That's typically how I do things. So if I'm like, yo, it's 2 days and I'm going to bid $1,800, I'm going to bid them $3,600. If I can do it in a day and a half, great. If I can go out there with an SK 170 and do it in a day, even better. But that would be my advice. But the Denis Cimaf 180D was a fabulous machine. It worked.